Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon when it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. All right, so we're gonna talk about the book,
Yeah.
and I'm recording, just so you know.
Sweet.
This disclaimer. We're going to talk about the book, but I want to talk about you first because I want to know who you are. I know who you are just a bit by creeping a little bit on the internet, but I don't even like to creep too much when I do this because I want to hear about who you are from you.
Yeah. Love it.
So who are you?
So for me, I came from the music world, man. 20 years with two different bands, two different record deals, touring the world. First with a band called Fort Pastor. That was like a part Australian, part American trio. Was our first major deal and toured for 3 years with Fort Pastor. And then left that deal, released a solo record in between, and then went back with one of my former bandmates, JT Keel, who's a slide guitar, banjo, mandolin, you name it, he plays it. We formed Big Kettle Drum in 2009 and have been touring pretty much ever since. I just started to slow down maybe 3 or 4 years ago to transition into the speaking world from touring with the band. But yeah, it's been a long journey, almost 20 years in the music business. And, you know, I can't believe I don't look 108 years old. So I feel it.
Because you're only 31.
Yeah. I got 31-year-old pairs of underwear. So that is just the truth.
Well, okay. So, all right. Musician.
Yep.
Like working musician. Because, you know, when someone says musician, in some sense, it's almost like saying photographer, right? Because it's like everyone's a photographer. Well, everyone can strum a little bit of here and there, but working musician, you have been paid for being a musician. Author, right?
Yes.
Add that to the list now. And motivational speaker.
That is true. That is true.
So not everyone, so I'm still diving into who you are a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
Not everyone who is a musician is an author.
Correct.
Let alone motivational speaker. So what do you attribute about yourself that you have that kind of a Venn diagram that can describe you, right?
Yeah.
Like what's in the center of that Venn diagram for you? How does that work?
So it's impact for me. So, you know, we'll talk about it in a minute, but one of my black sheep values is impact. And so I've spent the majority of my life trying to figure out what is the best vehicle to achieve the impact that I want. And so it started out with sports. With me, I was planning on playing professional baseball. I went to college to play ball and got hurt. And so for me, like, I didn't have a backup plan. And so it took me a minute to try to figure things out. And so, you know, I thought it was going to be music. And then I sort of in the middle of the record deals, when I had some time off, I thought it might be pastoring a church. And so, you know, I started a church in my living room, let's see, right around 2009, and pastored a church for 6 years and built it to about 400 people or so. And just realized, among a bunch of other things, that right idea, wrong vehicle. Again, I love the impact, but it wasn't, I care too much. And I can't cop out with I'll pray about it answer when someone's struggling. And so I would take on those burdens, and it killed me. And so left that life as a pastor years ago, and I went back to music. And then the speaking thing has been really the last couple of years, honestly, but just has like taken off so fast that I wasn't expecting the level of success I think that that I've had, and it's just presented some opportunities for me to do some different things. And so writing books was one of the honest truth is, if you're an author, people pay you more money. So guess what? It was write a book on ant farts, or figure something else out to write about. Be that number one Amazon seller under,
author looks really nice on that resume, right? What'd you say? I missed that.
I said the Amazon number one bestseller in ant flatulence. It's a very niche category.
Yeah, that's niched, all right. But really, in all seriousness, the author piece looks really good, if not necessary, on that resume, right? And you got to go around and you got to get John Acuff and Donald Miller and Seth Godin to give you their little. I mean, there's a billion people like that. Bob Goff, they're all out there where you get their foreword would be great, but even like a little quote that you can throw on there, right?
That's it. So, I self-published my first book a couple of years ago called Rock and Roll With It, Overcoming the Challenge of Change, and sort of looked at, and what took me off the road was my oldest son being diagnosed with cancer when he was 14. And so I had to figure something else out because I couldn't stay out on the road because I knew he was going to need care once we got him home. And so that is sort of what led me to try to figure out what that next thing was going to be. Mm-hmm. And then, so I wrote that book. It was great, but self-published, it's not a lot of fanfare. You can only get the fanfare that you can afford. Right. And so about a year ago, I've got a ton of friends in the speaking business who have some really successful books, people like Phil Jones and Ron Tite and Scott Stratton. And, a lot of them used this publisher out of Vancouver called Page Two. And so I set up a meeting. We had this talk. They loved the idea. And so here we are finally a year later with the book ready to come out September 29th.
So you have all these vehicles, you have these skill sets that lead to these different vehicles.
Yeah.
But you mentioned impact. What's the foundation of the impact? Like what's behind the impact? You want to have an impact.
Yeah.
So what end or for what purpose? What's that about?
Well, you just hit it on the head. It's purpose, right? So the whole point of the impact is part of my purpose. And so there's a book called Start With Why that was written by Simon Sinek. That was a hugely popular book. He's a very smart man, brilliant mind. I happen to disagree with Start With Why. You can't start with why. You have to start with what. So what are your non-negotiables? What are your deeply held personal core values? Because that's what your purpose is born out of. And so if those words are not included in your purpose, then your what and your why are not aligned. And thus you can't stay committed to any goal that you establish. So for me, it became writing about these black sheep values. The book is called Black Sheep: Unleash the Extraordinary, Awe-Inspiring, Undiscovered You. Well, that subtitle is all about people winging it. Over the last 2 years, I've asked tens of thousands of people in my talks, can they, in one or two succinct sentences, tell me what their life's purpose is? And the answer is no. Then I say, can you tell me what your non-negotiables are? Give me those 5 or 6 non-negotiables that you live your life by, those personal core values. Nobody can do it. A fraction of a percent of people can actually do it. So that's what made me write the book. So for me, those non-negotiables, those black sheep values, the title of the book comes from a little piece of information that I got when I was 47 years old. I had no idea why farmers didn't value black sheep like the rest of the flock. I thought it was, I don't know, they were, our idea of what a black sheep is, come to find out, was born out of a lie. And so this idea that they are the excommunicated, they are the ones that are sort of off to the side, and is born out of the fact that a black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. So every black sheep is in fact 100% authentically original. And when I heard that, I'm like, holy shit, I've thought that I was, being a black sheep was a bad thing for most of my life. And then I realized that my ultimate goal in life is to be 100% authentically original, that
right.
person I was created to be. And when I realized that that's what black sheep actually are, I had this concept to help people discover what I call your flock of five. It's your 5 black sheep values. These values that no matter how much someone wants to try to influence you or twist you, they simply cannot be changed like a black sheep's wool. It is what it is. And so the book walks you through discovering what your flock of 5 are. It helps you prove that they are in fact your sheep and that you are not caring for someone else's. And then it teaches you to speak them into existence. When and where do they appear in your life so that you can feed them and you can help yourself live out your purpose? Because your purpose, to come all the way back to what you just said, is born out of those black sheep values. So for me, creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. Those are my black sheep values. For the people that are watching, it looks like this. Oh, that's sexy, isn't it? Yes. They're all on the screen. If you are listening right now, you should watch this on YouTube because it's amazing.
But there's if not, 6 of those.
There are 6. And so I always tell people I'm a rock star. We do everything to excess. I needed an extra.
11. It goes to 11.
It goes to 11, baby. So I have 6 and not 5. That's true. But when you look at this, when I tell you my purpose, it's going to make complete sense, because my purpose is to creatively impact others by authentically providing hope. And so when you hear that purpose, it makes sense because it's wrapped in all of these values. Right. So my purpose and my values are in alignment, which allows me to be adaptable and resilient with the how I'm going to fulfill that, because the how changes every day, but the what and the why rarely change outside of a catastrophic
I like
event.
that. I like that just from the top level. I like that.
Yeah.
The how changes every day. So the how's not really an easy button, because some people want to just know how, and then that's what they're going to plug into the equation, so to speak. But what you're saying is how never looks the same, or how changes often.
So if you know anybody who is recently retired that is busier now than before they quit their job.
I do.
Okay. So the reason is because they're trying to figure out the how on an undefined what and why.
Ooh.
That's the reason they're doing that.
Oh, I wish I wouldn't have thought of this person now.
The problem is, look, I'll give you a perfect example. So my dad was a high school English teacher for 35 years. He fulfilled his purpose. He honored those values one way for 35 years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden he retires, and I can't take him to the grocery store without him having a 10-minute conversation with the person bagging my friggin' groceries, because he doesn't have his classroom anymore. So I'm like, Dad, can we get out of here without you having this 10-minute conversation with John, who is frantically trying to bag my groceries? And, he just, he's trying to figure out the how. And that's the tough part, right? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So do this with me. This just popped into my head. So let's take a little risk. And if it doesn't work, then no one will ever see it.
All right. I love it.
Walk me through one.
Yep.
For myself. Just one.
Okay.
Can we do one?
Sure.
What does that look like?
So let's do this. There's a couple different ways to identify your black sheep values.
Yeah.
The easiest way is to go to findyourblacksheep.com. There's an assessment there. You click on Find My Flock, right? You can do that, and it's going to walk you through narrowing down about 125 personal core values into your flock of 5. Okay. But there's another way we can do it. We can have some fun while we're doing it.
Okay.
So give me one of your top 3 favorite movies of all time.
Shawshank Redemption.
Believe it or not, that's the number one answer. That's the number one answer I've gotten over the last 2 years.
Should I give you a different one? Because I have a different one.
No, that's fine. Okay. Shawshank is great. Okay. Number 2 is Princess Bride. But
mine's Godfather.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. So a little different movie, but yes.
Very different.
So talk to me. Give me the Cliff Notes version. Give me the 1 minute or less version of Shawshank Redemption. What is it all about? I've never seen it.
Okay. It's about a man that finds himself in an unjust position against his will.
Yep.
And he realizes more than ever and teaches everybody around him that hope cannot be taken.
Okay. Hope
is yours. And it's really all about hope. Now, hope, I saw hope pop up on your screen. That was a big value for you.
Sure.
So maybe that's what we're getting to. I don't know, but that's what I get out of that movie. I watched that movie because he has hope for 20 years in the worst of most unjust, worst of circumstances. Right.
Yeah.
And he holds on to it and comes out the other side in a fantastic position, and he never gave up.
Okay. So there's several themes that you sort of went through in your description. And that's important, because this is what Maslow would call peak experiences, right? And so sometimes our values are born out of these peak experiences, and the experiences can be both good or bad, right? So you could have a really powerful experience that helps shape your values, or you could have something happen to you that really affected you in a bad way that you say, I never want to be like that, or I never want that to happen to anyone else. And people who come from backgrounds of abuse and that sort of thing, some of those values are born out of those horrible situations. But so let's look at hope. So we're going to assume that hope is one of your values. What actually we would do next is I would send you for the next week with an assignment of counting sheep. Not laying down and trying to fall asleep, but I would have you at the end of each day, you're going to do a little bit of archaeology. You're going to dig back through your day in your mind, and you are going to look for evidence that hope existed today. So if it was in a conversation, was it in a podcast interview? Was it, you've got to find proof. You've got to find proof.
Okay.
If you find proof regularly for 1 week, then we sort of take it to the next level. If we haven't found proof, then we do one of two things. You could have narrowed something down too far so that finding evidence is tough. So what happens is your definition of hope and my definition of hope might not be the same.
Right.
And so you might define hope with a very narrow sort of idea of what hope is. Maybe you confine hope to spirituality. And someone else might say, gosh, hope is so much more than that. It's just hoping that I can get through to tomorrow, or hoping that I win the lottery, or hoping that I don't run out of gas before I can afford to put more in my tank. Right. So there's a very different definition. And so we have to look at how you define something first to know if you actually can find evidence of it. If we can't, then we do something called leveling up, right? And so leveling up for me in this methodology would be, you tell me that community, relationships, family, and faith are 4 of your black sheep values. And I'm going to tell you that none of those are your black sheep value. Your value is connection. And you just gave me 4 ways that you experience connection. Okay. Right. And so same sort of a thing. We would look to see, can we level up to a word that encompasses the one you selected and a whole bunch more? Or the other part of it would be self-sabotage. So are you doing something to not allow this to show up in your life for whatever particular reason? And sometimes that's the case as well. So those are sort of the 2 things that we
Can you stop and tell me why somebody would do that?
Well, we all do it. We're all our worst critics, right? And so, so we have this conversation, and even in the photography world, right? So it's a highly competitive space. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So why should somebody hire you and not the other person?
My answer to that is because we can offer an experience that no one else can, because we are unique in who we are.
And I'm going to say, what does that mean?
Well, I'm going to say that we have a space. The way it manifests is that we have a space that is unique to us. It's amazing. We can take you to different locations that nobody else can because we have exclusive access. We offer products in a way that nobody else can because we have 20 years of experience behind us. Things of that nature.
So you've given me the how, which I completely understand Dan, and I think it's amazing that you have that sort of stuff to offer on the how, but you haven't given me the why. And
the story.
And the why is going to be wrapped in the what, which are those values. And so my question to the person hiring me is, what are you trying to capture here? What is it? Are you trying to capture hope? Are you trying to capture adventure? Are you trying to, what is it that you're trying to capture? Because the answer to how you're going to capture that is through your black sheep values. It's your unique perspective that allows you to connect. So if someone came to you and said, listen, let's see, well, let's pick a value here. So I'm going to take a look at one and say perseverance. I want this photograph to capture perseverance. That's really what I want it to say when someone looks at it. Yep. So I'm going to say, how do I connect with perseverance? Well, I have to go back to my black sheep values. So I have to look and go, creativity. Okay, how can I creatively show perseverance? My second one's hope. How can I use perseverance to have a photograph give somebody hope? How can I have impact show up through perseverance? I'm going through every single one of my black sheep values because it is my unique contribution to what is about to happen. And it's what separates you from everybody else on the planet and why they should come to you and no one else. The how, that's great. You want to take me somewhere no one else can get, that's fantastic. Yeah. But I want you because of the way that you make things come to life. Yeah. And that happens when you define those things. If you don't, and this is where I've pissed off many photographers. If you can't tell me what those things are, then the truth is you've never taken an original photograph your whole life. And that is a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth because you've only been able to give me a reflection of what matters to someone else. And I don't care about that. I want to know what matters to you. And so when I look at people that figure this stuff out, I see evidence of their black sheep in every photo they take, period.
What does it
That's
look
how
like?
It works. It depends. So look, it depends on the photo. So my guy, right? I think it's funny when you find a photographer that gets you, they're like a hairstylist, right? Like you don't change. It's like, no,
that's true.
This is the person.
Yeah. You don't want to go anywhere else. Right.
That's exactly right. It takes trust. It takes building up all of those things. Right. And so they make you feel comfortable so that you take risks and you do those sorts of things to try to capture lightning in a bottle. So for me, Rich Johnson is my guy and he's down here in Orlando and he's phenomenal and he takes risks, but he did this thing last year during as a response to some of the school shootings that had happened. And he sort of did this campaign of a back to school flyer, like something you'd get from Target. And it was all the kids doing their normal poses, except every single kid had a bulletproof vest on. And I'm going, okay, I know what matters to him. I know what his black sheep are when I see that, right? Mm-hmm. That is what separates him from everybody else. And so you have to see those things when you take a photograph so that people, when I walk by a Frank Lloyd Wright house, no one needs to tell me it's Frank Lloyd Wright. I know it's Frank Lloyd Wright. Yep. And that's because those black sheep values are screaming through the design. And that is the same thing that's the holy grail of whether you're an interior designer, an architect, a photographer, a musician, an artist of any kind. Until you define what your black sheep values are, you are not doing original work. You are only doing a reflection of what matters to everybody else. So
much of this seems to involve intentionality, right? Like, yeah. Yeah. So what I'm going to say is this. I think there's a mile of difference between being intentional and acting with deliberate intention. Being intentional is knowing that you are going to go to this particular location to do the photo shoot. Okay. Acting with deliberate intention is knowing exactly what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. It's not just the destination. It's actually how you're going to get there. There's more to it. So think of it this way. If you said, when you set a goal for yourself, if you say it out loud and you're like, this is what I'm going to do next year, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to gross $1 million next year in my business.
if you say, okay, that's the goal, it works like a GPS. Your brain works like a GPS. So when you establish your black sheep values, that helps. That's like the directions as to how you're going to get to that $1 million. And every time you veer off a path, your brain goes, whoa, 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 whoa. You told me you wanted to go here, and now you're headed over there. Do you want me to reroute, or are we just way off a course? And so what happens is our black sheep values pull us back to where we need to be to get to that end goal that we want to reach. And so that is why we want to define these things. Because if you don't, do you know how far you can get off path before you realize you're lost?
Right. Right.
It happens faster than we want to admit.
Do these values, do they shift or evolve or do they change over time? Like my values when I'm 20 going to be completely different when I'm 30. And is that going to mess me up if I put all my eggs into that bag? I mean,
that's
talk
a great
on that
question.
a little bit. I'm just thinking about it right now.
No, listen, that's the great question. That's the number one question people ask, right? Oh. Well, my purpose changes. No, that's bullshit. It doesn't change at all.
No, it does not change.
It does not change. So this is what happens. Most of our personal core values are fully developed by the time we're in our early 20s. Most of them. All the experiences you've had up to that point in your life have pretty much formed those things that matter most to you. Now, that doesn't mean you know what they are. That doesn't mean that you have discovered them. But most of them have been through your upbringing. Your what and your why rarely change outside of a catastrophic event. So, with me, with my son getting cancer, that definitely tweaked a few of my values because it changed my perspective.
Can you tell me what that looked like?
Sure.
What changed?
So, the first thing is I didn't have any of these things defined before this happened. And when I finally figured out what they were, the things that I used to consider important, the things that I would stake my flag in the ground and say, this is the hill I'm going to die on, were just not true. That was emotion-filled decisions that I were making, right? So because I was worked up, because I was holding on, whatever it might be, I couldn't understand what truly mattered to me because I was so worked up in an emotional state over just what was happening that I had nothing to sort of anchor me to. Mm-hmm. And so these black sheep values, it's the way I describe it is there's a tug of war going on in yourself 24 hours a day. And it's a tug of war between your black sheep and your feelings. And so what happens is our values are the things that matter the most to us. So you would think that you might want the values to win that tug of war all the time, but that's not true. You don't actually want either side to win. What you want is a healthy tension to be kept at all time. Huh. And the reason is because our values are born from our past. Okay. Anxiety, depression, all that sort of stuff lives in the future. It comes from uncertainty. It comes from us not knowing what's coming up. And so we get all worked up about the future. Well, our black sheep live in the present. Every decision we can make that will affect our lives happens in the present. You're not going to make a decision you can't make a decision in the future. You can't go back and change something you did in the past. Right. So everything happens in the present. And so if you think in my brain, what I do is this, I picture this tug of war with they tie sort of the ribbon in the middle, and then they have these two lines, and each side is trying to pull that ribbon over the line. If I feel myself getting really, really worked up with anxiety, or I'm worried about what's going to possibly happen about anything, I realize that I'm being pulled to the future. And so I have to go back to my values to ground me, to stop them from pulling that. If I don't check with my feelings when I'm making a decision. So if I'm going to make a decision based solely on my values and I ignore how I feel about it, our feelings are, in the book I said, our feelings are like the Hulk. And when you ignore the Hulk, Hulk no like that. Hulk get angry. Yeah. And so when we ignore our feelings, they become incredibly powerful and they can pull you off balance. So what we want to do, a good decision that's described in the book, is one that is born from these black sheep values. It considers all the facts you can get your hands on, and it honors what you're feeling in the moment. If you can do those three things, then you've made a good decision regardless of the outcome. Most of us make a decision of whether or not something is good or bad based on an outcome.
But can't your feelings betray your values, or vice versa?
Yes. 100%. That's that whole healthy tension, right? So when our feelings are betraying,
always healthy?
The tension. So here's the deal. If one side or the other wins, you will not stay committed to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
So there always has to be a compromise, or you always have to find
compromise. There's no compromise. This is about doing two things at once. This is about being grounded in the things that matter most to us, while at the same time acknowledging how we feel. What that doesn't mean is that I'm going to resolve the way I feel. If I'm pissed off, if I don't like something, it's okay as long as I go, listen, I understand that I'm pissed off. I understand that I don't like this decision. I've acknowledged that this is how I feel. That sort of keeps our feelings at bay at times, enough to balance that out. It's when we don't acknowledge and we just go, nope, this matters most. I'm just going to say yes. And that's what I'm going to do. And our feelings are going, you didn't even check with me. It's like making a decision to buy a car without talking to your wife, right? that is not a smart decision to make. You've got to make that check just to say, I'm including you in this process.
Is it like a self-awareness as opposed to a self-deception? Like you can convince yourself of anything if you want to barrel on through.
Well, yes and no. If you can convince yourself when you don't have your values defined. Yeah. And that's what we do all the time.
That's why it's so important to define them in the first place.
Oh, that's right. Because those are the rules of the road. So if you don't define, then that's what I'm saying. When we get off path, and I've never established where I even want to go because I haven't defined these things, then I can convince myself I'm headed in the right direction. Always. Well,
because you can be way off track and not even know that you're off track to begin with.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. That's right.
All right. Cut to the chase. Tell me the details of the book as far as release and how I can get it and where it's at and where you're at. And tell me all that stuff.
Yeah. So the book comes out September 29th. And just, I got to tell you, man, it's like, you're an artist. It's something that when you finally get it in your hands for that first time, it's like when you get that picture edited and it's exactly what you want. Yeah. There's just a feeling of fulfillment that happens. And this has been a year. So think of like taking a picture a year ago and not actually seeing it until, until a year later. It's just like, it's so, I'm incredibly proud of Page 2 and Kendra Hall, who was my editor, and just like the work they did was phenomenal on this. And it captures everything I wanted it to capture. It's not a long book. I make a promise straight up front in the book that says, I promise no fluff. There's no fluff. Good. All that's there is just the stuff that's going to be transformational in your life, and everything else can wait. And so September 29th, it's available wherever you buy books, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon. It'll be in stores after September. We just found out actually it's going to be in the window at Barnes & Noble on Fifth Ave in New York City, which is pretty cool. We like that in the fall. But the idea here is this. There's two people who should buy this book. If you are someone who is struggling right now to adapt, if you're struggling to be resilient with what's happening in the world and you need help, this book is going to give you help. If you are someone who is kicking ass and taking names and you want to sustain that, this is the book that's going to help you do that too. And so the idea here is this work is hard work. It's hard work. And if you phone it in, you're going to get shit results. And so you've got to understand that there's a reason why a fraction of percent of people actually can tell me these things. And it's because it's hard work. But I will tell you, the ones that have figured it out have left everybody else in the rearview mirror. They are loving life and are living life at a level that they never thought possible. Do
you need to be a type A extrovert?
No.
Fill in the blanks. Enneagram 1, whatever it is.
So here's the deal. Most of those people think they know it all already. So
it helps if you're not
my clients. They're like, why do I need that piece of shit book? I already got the answers. So that is not the audience, man.
I love it. That's
the audience is for people who are brave enough to accept, this is what I say in the book. If you really want to learn how to be unbreakable, you have to understand that you're already broken. That's it. And so let's focus on what holds the brokenness together and not focus on trying to not be broken. That's what this book does.
What about your website if they want to know more about you or your speaking and all the other stuff you do?
So if they want to go and take the assessment, that's at findyourblacksheep.com, and they can get the book there as well and read all the reviews and all that sort of stuff. My personal website is just Brant Menswar, BrantMenswar, BrantMenswar.com.
The book is Black Sheep, Unleash the Extraordinary, Awe-Inspiring, Undiscovered You.
Yes.
September 29th.
That's it, man. I'm telling you, there's an eggplant emoji that I want to put right here for everyone to see, because that's how excited I am about September 29th. That's just real, brother. That's just real.
I believe you. I will take your word for it. I do not need proof.
That's right.
Brant, hey, thank you for your time, man, and for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully we can have a follow-up at some point and
I would love that,
see
man.
What's next for you. That's what I'm interested in.
Listen, I can't thank you enough for sharing your platform with me. It means everything to me. And so know that I care as much as you care about people getting something for their time. And I just thank you for yours today. So I appreciate it.
I believe you. Thanks, brother. Have a good one.
You too, man.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.